The glow of the upscale bar's lights shimmered on the glass of her martini as Sophia watched David walk in, his possessive arm wrapped around a woman who couldn't have been more than 25. 2 years since the divorce, and still her stomach tightened with that familiar mix of anger and humiliation. Sophia was 29 and had the kind of face that came from trying to be invisible, not unattractive, but carrying the tension of someone who had learned early to take up less space in the world. Her eyes had aged before their time. Her shoulders were permanently a little hunched, as if still bearing the weight of 2 years spent in a marriage that had been nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion built by a brilliant liar. She'd come to the bar only because her coworker had insisted. "You need to get out," Marina had said, applying pink lipstick in the restaurant locker room mirror where they both worked. "You're starting to turn into a ghost." And then, of course, David had shown up, as if the universe took pleasure in playing tricks on her. The bartender slid another martini toward her, nodding subtly toward the other end of the bar. "Compliments of the gentleman in the corner," he said, his voice barely audible over the jazz quartet playing in the background. Sophia followed his gesture and found a man sitting alone, sipping straight whiskey, watching the crowd in a way that suggested nothing escaped his notice. His suit was flawless, black and white, tailored by someone who understood the power of a silhouette. He had black hair, an angular face that looked carved from stone, and eyes of a gray that had no name in Portuguese. When his gaze met hers, Sophia felt her whole body freeze. There was something in that look, something that suggested he had seen women like her before and knew exactly what they wanted without them having to say a word. He raised his glass slightly, a gesture that was both gentle and possessive. David's laugh cut through her distraction. That performative laugh he used when he wanted attention. Sophia knew it well. It was the sound that always came right before his cruel remarks about others, those subtle humiliations disguised as jokes. When David spotted her, triumph flashed in his eyes. Sophia recognized that expression. He was already crafting the story he'd tell his friends, his pathetic ex-wife, alone in a bar on a Friday night, still wearing the earrings he'd given her before everything fell apart. Something inside Sophia simply broke. Before she could think twice, she was stepping down from her bar stool, martini in hand, walking toward the stranger who had been watching her with that calm, possessive gaze, moving with a confidence she didn't actually feel. "I need a favor," she whispered, leaning closer as her heart raced. "My ex just walked in. I don't want to be the divorced woman drinking alone tonight." The stranger's lips curved into a faint smile. "And what exactly do you have in mind?" he asked, his voice deep, carrying an accent Sophia couldn't quite place. "Just pretend we know each other," Sophia said, sliding onto the stool beside him. "Maybe laugh at something I say. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking to preserve what's left of my dignity." What happened next was not part of her improvised plan. The stranger stood with a fluid motion that hinted at military training, or something just as dangerous. His hand came up gently to her face as he leaned in. "Maybe this will be more convincing," he murmured, giving her a heartbeat to pull away before his lips found hers. The kiss wasn't aggressive, but it was utterly possessive. His hand was warm against her cheek, steady, grounding, as the room around her seemed to blur and spin. Sophia hadn't kissed anyone since David. She hadn't felt that dizzying sense of connection with someone whose name she didn't even know. When they pulled apart, the stranger's eyes glinted with amusement, and something darker, more dangerous. "Marcus," he said simply, his thumb brushing her lower lip in a way that felt far too intimate for two people who'd just met. "Sophia," she replied, her voice embarrassingly breathless as she tried to regain composure. She risked a glance toward David and saw pure shock frozen on his face, his date completely forgotten as he watched the scene unfold, eyes narrowing. Marcus followed her gaze, his stance shifting subtly. Something in his posture changed, a predatory stillness that made the hairs on Sophia's arms rise despite the warmth of the bar. "Your ex-husband looks displeased," Marcus observed, his hand moving to the small of her back with the kind of ease that suggested he'd done this hundreds of times before. The casual possessiveness of the gesture wasn't lost on David, whose face flushed a deep red of anger. Sophia should have felt triumphant. Instead, something in David's expression sent a chill through her, that familiar tightening of his jaw, the one that had always come right before his worst moments during their marriage. "We should go," Sophia murmured, suddenly aware that her impulsive act might have consequences far beyond this night. Marcus's fingers tightened ever so slightly against her back. "Allow me to walk you to the door," he said, the suggestion carrying a weight that didn't invite refusal. He signaled to the bartender, who nodded in instant understanding, as if Marcus were a regular whose requests were always prioritized. Outside, the September air was cool against her flushed skin as Marcus guided her toward a sleek black car waiting at the curb. A man in a dark suit opened the door without being asked, his face expressionless as he gave Marcus a respectful nod. "I appreciate the rescue, but I can get home on my own," Sophia said, stepping back slightly, suddenly aware of how little she knew about the man whose lips had been on hers just minutes ago. "Your ex-husband is currently arguing with security to follow us," Marcus said calmly. "I'm offering you a ride to make sure he doesn't take that argument somewhere else." Sophia's stomach dropped. Memories of David's temper flashed through her mind. The shattered glasses, the wall punched inches from her head, the promises that next time he wouldn't miss. She had never told anyone about those moments. She had hidden the evidence and made excuses until she finally filed for divorce, after finding him with his assistant. "You're safe with me, Sophia," Marcus said, his voice softening in a way that told her he had read the fear on her face. "I have no expectations, except to make sure you get home without incident." She hesitated only a moment before taking the hand he offered, sliding into the car's leather interior, which smelled faintly of expensive cologne and quiet authority. Marcus got in after her, giving the driver an address Sophia didn't recognize. He then asked for her phone, typed something quickly, and handed it back. "We're not going to my apartment, are we?" Sophia asked, as the car turned in the opposite direction from her modest place on the border between neighborhoods. Marcus's face was unreadable as the streetlights flickered across his features. "I have a penthouse in Manhattan where you'll be safe tonight," he said matter-of-factly. "Your ex-husband has your address, I assume." The casual way he assessed the situation, the immediate awareness of a danger most people would have dismissed, sent a shiver through her. How did he know? The penthouse had views of Central Park that seemed to stretch forever. Sleek modern furniture in shades of gray and black, accented by art pieces Sophia recognized as museum grade. Security was seamlessly integrated, the kind that only revealed itself when you knew to look. "Make yourself comfortable," Marcus said, removing his suit jacket and folding it neatly over a chair. "The guest room is through that door if you'd like to rest. There are new toiletries and clothes that should fit you in the bathroom." Sophia froze in the middle of the living room, trying to process how surreal her night had become. "Who keeps women's clothes in a guest bathroom?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her voice as she considered the implications. "My sister stays here occasionally," Marcus replied, pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "Though I suspect you have other questions beyond my housekeeping habits." The drink burned pleasantly as Sophia took a small sip, summoning the courage to ask what had been spinning through her mind. "The car? The security? This place? Who are you, Marcus? Really?" He studied her for a long moment, as if weighing how much truth she could handle. "I manage several business interests throughout the city," he said finally, his deliberate vagueness revealing more than any precise answer could. A notification buzzed on his phone, drawing his attention. His expression hardened as he read the message, his fingers typing a quick reply before his focus returned to her with practiced ease. 3 days turned into a week in Marcus's penthouse. Each night began with Sophia insisting she needed to go home. Each morning began with her still wrapped in a kind of luxury she'd never known. Her modest work as a graphic designer allowed her to work remotely, and Marcus had arranged for his team to retrieve her essentials. "David's been watching your apartment," Marcus said one morning over coffee, sliding a tablet across the table that showed security footage of her ex lurking near the parking lot. The casual way he monitored David's movements should have unnerved her, yet it brought a strange comfort she wasn't ready to unpack. Her 5-year-old daughter, Emma, adapted to the temporary arrangement with surprising ease, enchanted by the penthouse's hidden features: a bookshelf that opened into a secret playroom, a bathtub with rainbow jets, a private chef who made cartoon-shaped pancakes on request. Marcus's demeanor around Emma revealed a gentleness Sophia hadn't expected. His usual intensity softened when Emma shyly asked him to read bedtime stories or help build elaborate pillow forts in the living room. He never overstepped, never assumed a role in her life, yet something natural began to form between them, that made Sophia's heart ache. Each night after Emma fell asleep, Marcus and Sophia would talk for hours on the terrace overlooking the glittering city. He shared carefully edited stories from his childhood in Palermo, about a father whose expectations felt like concrete, about responsibilities inherited rather than chosen, always omitting the kind of specifics that would reveal the true nature of his work. Sophia shared her own truths, her derailed dream of becoming an artist, her whirlwind romance with David that had turned into a slow nightmare of control, her determination to give Emma a life without fear. "You're stronger than you realize," Marcus said one night, his fingers tracing the faint scar along her wrist, evidence of the night David had gripped her so hard it drew blood. The tenderness of his touch contrasted sharply with the cold fury in his eyes as he examined the mark. Their first real kiss came 2 weeks after the night at the bar. It wasn't a performance for an audience, but something genuine, something that happened in her kitchen at midnight. Sophia had come looking for tea and found Marcus instead, standing by the window with a glass of whiskey and shadows in his eyes. The attraction between them had been building since that first night. Lingering looks, excuses to touch, conversations that stretched until dawn. But it was his vulnerability that finally broke her resistance, that rare glimpse of uncertainty in a man who controlled everything around him. "I should send you away," he murmured against her lips, his hands framing her face as if she might break. "There are parts of my life you don't want to know, Sophia. Things that would make you grab Emma and run." Sophia knew he was right. She had seen enough to piece together the truth of who Marcus really was. The late-night meetings, the coded phone calls, the men who arrived with bruised knuckles and deferential silence, seeking his direction. Still, she moved closer, drawn to his warmth despite the danger he represented. Something changed between them after that night, an unspoken acknowledgement that they were crossing lines that couldn't easily be redrawn. Marcus began to slowly introduce her to pieces of his world, art auctions where millions changed hands with casual nods, restaurants where chefs cooked dishes never listed on menus, private clubs where conversations went quiet the moment he entered. A month into their strange arrangement, reality intruded in the form of legal papers delivered to Marcus's penthouse, David's petition for full custody of Emma, citing Sophia's immoral lifestyle and dangerous associations as proof she was unfit to be a mother. The documents included photos of Sophia entering Marcus's building, stepping out of his car, holding his hand in a restaurant. "He's had us followed," Sophia whispered, her hands shaking as she spread the papers across Marcus's desk. Marcus's reaction was one of controlled fury, a measured stillness more dangerous than any outburst. He made a single phone call, speaking rapidly in Italian before switching to English only to say, "No harm comes to him, just information." Within hours, a file appeared, filled with details about David's life that shocked even Sophia. Gambling debts owed to people who didn't collect legally, an apartment kept for trysts with barely adult women, offshore accounts hiding money that should have been declared in their divorce settlement. "Use this," Marcus said, sliding the folder toward her. "Your lawyer can negotiate from a position of strength now." He didn't say how he'd obtained the information, and Sophia didn't ask. Another unspoken agreement in a relationship built on selective truths. The custody threat forced them into conversations they had been avoiding, about what they were to each other, about the future, about whether there could truly be space for her and Emma in Marcus's world. Late-night whispers turned into tense discussions that left them both restless and uncertain. "I want you and Emma in my life," Marcus admitted one night, his usual confidence giving way to rare vulnerability. "But my life comes with risks you can't imagine. Enemies who wouldn't hesitate to use you and Emma to get to me." Sophia had suspected the truth for weeks. She'd seen it in the security surrounding them, in the way people in the city deferred to him, in the names that were never spoken aloud in his presence. Still, hearing him say it made it suddenly, terrifyingly real. "Tell me everything," Sophia said, needing at last to face the full truth of the man she had somehow fallen in love with. "No more half-truths or careful omissions. I need to know exactly who you are, Marcus." His confession came calmly, matter-of-factly, as we sat on his terrace, overlooking a city he had described in fragments but had never fully explained his place within. The Moretti family's control over distribution channels throughout the Northeast, the legitimate businesses that laundered money for less wholesome operations, his position as heir apparent after his father's illness. Each revelation should have sent her running, should have confirmed every fear she had pushed aside. Instead, Sophia found herself focusing on the man beneath the title, the way he gently tucked Emma into bed at night, his respect for her independence, his quiet determination to protect them both from the darkness of his world. The next morning brought a moment of choice. She could take Emma and leave, return to a life of constant fear of David, but one far removed from Marcus's dangerous empire. Or she could stay and accept the complicated reality of loving a man whose power rested on foundations she had always considered immoral. "I want to see," Sophia said over coffee, Emma happily distracted by cartoons in the other room. "Your business, your real offices, the parts you've been hiding. If I'm making this choice, I need to see everything." Marcus's hesitation was visible, a rare crack in his usually perfect composure. "Some doors can't be unopened, Sophia," he said at last, studying her face as if memorizing it, perhaps fearing it might be the last time she would look at him without fear or judgment. The black car took them to a modest building in Little Italy. The restaurant on the ground floor buzzed with lunchtime patrons who greeted Marcus with a familiarity that spoke of generational loyalty. An elderly woman named Maria hugged him like a son before turning curious eyes on Sophia, assessing her with the sharp judgment of someone who had seen many women come and go. Behind the kitchen, a heavy door led to a staircase descending into what looked like a wine cellar but opened into a sophisticated office space. Men in expensive suits paused in conversation as they entered, nodding respectfully in acknowledgement of Marcus's authority. Enzo, Marcus's consigliere, according to a brief introduction, raised an eyebrow at Sophia's presence, but said nothing as he handed Marcus a leather folder filled with what Sophia recognized as balance sheets and property acquisitions. The casual way they discussed millions in transactions made her salary as a graphic designer feel laughably insignificant. Sophia watched in silence as Marcus moved through his world with effortless command, resolving disputes between business owners seeking protection, reviewing reports of rival families' incursions, authorizing payments to politicians whose campaigns thrived on Moretti support. The power he wielded was absolute and terrifying in scope. What struck her most wasn't the obvious illegality of certain operations, but the complex moral code that governed everything: respect for tradition, protection of family above all else, a strange system of honor that drew clear lines even within criminal enterprise. Marcus's world operated by rules as rigid as any legal system, only with different boundaries and far harsher consequences. "You're right to be afraid," Marcus said quietly as they returned to the car, his hand finding hers with tentative uncertainty. "I wouldn't blame you for walking away." Something had shifted during those hours, her naive perception giving way to a sharper understanding of both the danger and the man. Marcus wasn't just a criminal. He was a leader protecting his people, maintaining order in a system that existed long before him and would continue after, trying to steer it toward legitimacy while honoring the debts of those who depended on him. "I need time," Sophia whispered, overwhelmed by everything she had seen, needing space to think about what it meant for Emma, for them. "I just can't." Her voice trailed off when Marcus's phone rang. His expression hardened instantly as he answered, a short growl of words cutting through the air, the kind of tone that silenced the entire car. The attack came without warning. 3 men, hired by David, had sold information to the Colombo family about Marcus's security routines. The ambush in the parking garage might have succeeded if not for Enzo's suspicions after tracing unusual payments to David's offshore accounts. Marcus returned to the penthouse with a graze from a bullet on his shoulder and a coldness in his eyes Sophia had never seen before. "Pack essentials for you and Emma," he ordered, his voice leaving no room for questions. "We're leaving in an hour." The reality of Marcus's world crashed into hers with terrifying clarity as security teams swept through the penthouse, checking for surveillance devices and weak points in their protection. Emma stood in the doorway clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, while men with hidden weapons moved efficiently through what had been their temporary home. The safe house in Sicily had been in Marcus's family for generations, a sprawling villa surrounded by olive groves, protected by both modern security and the loyalty of locals whose families had served the Moretti name for decades. In any other circumstance, it might have felt like paradise. Antonio Moretti, Marcus's father, occupied the villa's east wing, his once powerful frame diminished by illness, though his eyes remained sharp as he evaluated Sofia and Emma upon their arrival. He spoke rapid Italian to his son, questions Sofia couldn't understand, but whose meaning she could infer from Marcus's guarded, defensive tone. "He wants to know if you understand what it means to love me," Marcus translated later as they stood on the terrace overlooking the Mediterranean. "If you're ready for a life where danger will always exist at the edges, where Emma will one day have to learn truths that might make her hate us both." The old man's question hung between them as days turned into weeks in Sicily. Emma adapted quickly to her new surroundings with the resilience of childhood, learning Italian phrases from the housekeeper, collecting seashells along the private beach, falling asleep to Enzo's stories about the island's ancient myths. Sofia found unexpected peace in the villa's sun-drenched gardens, sketching for the first time in years while Marcus managed his affairs remotely, restructuring operations in New York, dealing with David's betrayal in ways he carefully never described. Distance offered a clarity she hadn't had amid the chaos of New York. Antonio's health declined rapidly during their third week, bringing Marcus's siblings and their families to the villa for what everyone quietly understood might be their final goodbyes. Sofia watched as cousins welcomed Emma into their games without question, while Marcus's sisters regarded her with cautious curiosity, the intricate web of Moretti family dynamics unfolding in every interaction. "You don't have to stay," Marcus told her one night, finding her alone on the beach after a particularly hard day with his father. "I've arranged documents, accounts, a new identity in Vancouver. You and Emma could disappear, start fresh somewhere David would never find you." The offer caught her off guard, not because it was unexpected, but because she realized instantly she didn't want it. Somewhere amid the fear, the uncertainty, and the revelations of the past months, she had made her decision without consciously realizing it. She turned to face Marcus, seeing not the dangerous crime boss or the powerful businessman, but the man who read bedtime stories to Emma and laughed at his own terrible attempts to cook Italian food. "This is where we belong," she said, the certainty in her voice surprising them both. Antonio Moretti passed peacefully the next morning, his hand in Marcus's as the first light of dawn filtered through the bedroom windows. The funeral drew family from across Europe and America, the small village church filled with figures dressed in black, their solemn respect transcending language. Sofia stood beside Marcus throughout the service, Emma's small hand in hers as the girl quietly mimicked the behavior of the Italian children around her. The parish priest spoke of legacy and family, of sin and redemption, his words washing over her as she watched Marcus accept his father's role with quiet dignity. The reading of Antonio's will took place in the villa's study. Family members sat according to tradition, while Enzo, who had flown back for the funeral, distributed sealed envelopes to each of Marcus's siblings. Sofia's shock at being included among the recipients must have shown on her face, earning a rare smile from the consigliere. Inside her envelope was no money or deed, but a delicate silver key attached to a chain. Antonio's final message, delivered through Marcus's locket, sealed since his mother's death 20 years earlier. The sharp breath Marcus took told her its significance went far beyond jewelry. "He approved," Marcus whispered later that night, the open locket resting on the bedside table, revealing a small compartment containing a handwritten note. "He rarely gave his blessing to anyone outside the family, but he wrote this the night after we arrived. He saw you with Emma. He saw how she loved you. He saw the future I could have with you." The transition of power unfolded with ceremonial precision in the days following the funeral. Marcus accepted the responsibilities of his birthright in rituals that blended Catholic tradition with older, more secret practices. Sofia watched the weight settle on his shoulders, the last traces of hesitation giving way to steady, unshakable resolve. Their return to New York came with changes already in motion. Marcus's legitimate businesses were expanding while certain other operations were quietly dismantled. Security protocols were redesigned to create layers of separation between his public life and private interests, a gradual path toward legitimacy that would take years, not days. David had vanished during their absence. His debts to dangerous creditors had reportedly been settled by an anonymous benefactor, on the condition that he relocate permanently to the West Coast. Sofia never asked for details, maintaining the careful balance of knowing just enough without truly knowing.